Welcome everybody here at this broadcast of Statistics Netherlands with the latest figures on the 3 islands overseas, Sint Eustatius, Statia, Bonaire and Saba, in our new publication Trends in the Caribbean 2021. And welcome to our guests in this online broadcast, the State Secretary Mr. Raymond Knops from the Ministry of the Interior and Kingdom Relations. Welcome Mr. Knops, all the way in Limburg online with us. And in Bonaire we have also online guests. The island governor of Bonaire, Edison Reina. Welcome Mr. Reina. And at Statia, St. Eustatius, we have the commissioner, the government commissioner, Mrs. Alida Francis, and welcome to you. And then also here in the studio, Angelique Berg, our Director General of Statistics Netherlands. Welcome, Angelique. You are going to do the official handover of the publication later. And at Bonaire, our people of Statistics Netherlands over there, Quinten Knuff, the head of office there, and our spokesperson, Ms. Esther Meijer-Sedney. Welcome to you in this broadcast. And in the broadcast also all guests welcome, the press, the members of the press, especially at the 3 islands, and other guests that are watching us right now. And to the members of the press, you can ask questions after this broadcast, after the official presentation. Well, we are doing this in English. I have to mention that because we have some viewers that are English people, English speaking. So that's the reason why we decided to not do it in Dutch. Angelique, we can call each other by the first name because we work together here a lot at Statistics Netherlands. Yeah. This is a very important publication for us. Why is it so important to the islands, for instance?
Yeah, well, it sure is, Mike. And when we mention what we do in English at the Statistics Netherlands, we say we produce facts that matter. And I think that covers exactly what it is. And this is important now more than ever for any region or country or village. Yeah. For a number of reasons. First of all, accurate and timely data can contribute to a transparent and effective government, of course. And which are our policy goals? Where do we succeed? Where is room for improvement? Yeah. It is virtually impossible to answer these questions without statistics. Yeah. And secondly, what I'd like to mention is that data can create clarity in a world that is becoming more and more complex every day, especially now with the COVID-19 pandemic still with us. People are wondering on the islands, for instance, what is happening to the tourism industry, such a vital part of the economy there, and what exactly is the impact of COVID, and how do we recover? Questions like that. So these are all very important questions, and you need data to give answers to them. So I was in Bonaire this summer, and I saw with how much passion our colleagues conducted this very important work. So a big thank you to the team over there, and I'm sure that this publication will be very useful for everyone who's watching today.
Sure, I guess so too. You mentioned already some important topics that are also in this publication, tourism, the latest data.
Absolutely.
We have done some releases today on those data in the press, for the press already. We have seen it in the Netherlands already. It was on the radio, and in newspapers it's going to be. So that's a great accomplishment already of this publication. But in Bonaire, we have our spokesperson there, Esther Meijer-Sedney, available. She is knowing everything about this publication. Esther, welcome. Guess we can see you now. And can you tell us a little bit more about your research and about your office?
The data collection, and we also take care of the dissemination of the statistics on the islands. We look at the information necessities, and we communicate extensively also with the public.
Okay. And you are doing now all the publication and the relations with the press at Bonaire on this and the other islands on this publication. And you have a presentation available about the contents of this publication.
I do, yes. A very short subtract of the contents.
Go ahead, just take us with you and show us what's in there.
Okay, yes, I will do. Well, as I want to say that it's a pleasure to be here. I'm very honored to speak to you today, to present to you some highlights of this great book. This year is the 10th edition of this publication. And what makes this edition very special is that it covers statistics ranging from the year 2018, 19, 20, and part of 21. So this means that it covers statistics from the islands before the start of the pandemic and after the start of the pandemic, because we are also being hit by this terrible virus. And we can see in our statistics how we have been impacted on, for example, our island population statistics, consumer prices, and especially our tourism statistics, which we have been talking about today in the papers. So after the COVID-19 made its entrance to the islands, containment measures were introduced. And these measures were necessary due to the vulnerable position that we have on the islands. As you know, we have limited healthcare facilities. We have no ICU capacity, for example. So it would be a real disaster if things got out of hand. One of the most direct and visible effects of the measures was seen on tourism. And these measures included flight restrictions, which then resulted in a drop in the visitors coming to the islands by air. In 2020, Bonaire received 58% less visitors compared to 2019. Because as you can imagine, at a certain point, the tourism came to a complete standstill. And as you can see in the graph, since October of 2020, visitors started coming again to the island of Bonaire. Since December of 2020, Bonaire received slightly more visitors compared to the months before. And in July of 2021, we see that the number of inbound tourism exceeded even the number of the tourists in 2019 with 9%. So we can safely speak about the complete recovery. Moreover, the first cruise ship tourists started arriving on Bonaire since last September. If we look at the developments on Ceiba and Statia on the area of incoming tourism by air, we see a different scenario compared to Bonaire. This is because the islands, they have different containment policies in place. And then we see that in Ceiba and Statia, we see a slower recovery compared to Bonaire, whereby the figures of last September show that for Ceiba, we had reached 50% of the figures of 2019. And for Statia, we see that we reached 30% of the levels before the pandemic. As we just saw, COVID-19 definitely had an effect on the number of visitors of 2020, but did it also influence migration figures? We cannot say that for sure, but the statistics show that on Ceiba and Statia, immigration almost halved compared to the previous year, 2019. Still, the population on Ceiba and Statia remained practically the same in 2020 as the year before, and this means 1,918 residents on Ceiba and 3,142 residents on Statia. On Bonaire, on the other hand, we see a much different development. If we take a look at the immigration into Bonaire in 2020, it was slightly lower than a year before, but it's still higher compared to the average of previous years. In 2020, there was a positive migration balance, as you can see in the graph, which is an important contributor to the population growth in 2020. Whereby the numbers of the residents on Bonaire reached 21,745, and this is nearly 4% more compared to a year before. An interesting note to see is that compared to 2011, the population on Bonaire grew by almost 39%. Let's continue to look at more statistics. What about the unemployment? What happened there? Does the COVID-19 crisis reflect on the unemployment figures? Well, though we cannot relate this figure directly to the COVID-19 based on the current data that we have, we know what unemployment looked like for the 3 islands in 2020. This was 4.6% on Bonaire, 3.1% on Saba, and 2.3% on Statia. Fortunately, to tackle the economic consequences of COVID-19, the government supported companies financially by contributing to their costs, their wage costs, and their fixed overhead in 2020. And we see that half of the companies in the Caribbean Netherlands, they used this help that was provided, the so-called emergency package. Another very interesting data to share with you today is the share of the renewable energies produced on the islands. And we see a decrease of the share of the production on Bonaire and Statia. On Bonaire, we see a production of 21%. On Statia, we see a production of 31%. And on Saba, we can see that the production, there was a rise in the production. In 2019, Saba had a 25.7% renewable energy production, and in 2020, there was a rise to 32.2% on Saba. So as you may have noticed, this edition of Trends in the Caribbean Netherlands presents some interesting developments on the island, not only on tourism, population, unemployment, and renewable energies, but also youth, nature, economy, and much more, which I haven't have time to tell you today. We wish you many answers, many ideas, insights, and inspiration as you go through the pages of this edition. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Esther. Well, indeed, a lot of topics and numbers that you can see in this publication. As you mentioned, it's the 10th edition. Is that the reason for a little party over there?
There's always reason for party on the islands, Mike.
Okay.
But yes, we are very happy that this is the 10th edition, and we have been giving a lot of publicity to it, and we're going to do so this week also.
Okay, well, you deserve it. It's a great publication. Thank you for your presentation. Well, I guess, Angelique, then we now have the moment to do the official handover of the publication.
Yes.
And first of all, we're going to do that to the State Secretary, Mr. Knops. Welcome, Mr. Knops, again in Limburg. Well, go ahead, Angelique.
Yeah, it's always, hello, Mr. Knops. It's always a bit of a struggle to do this in a virtual format. But I hereby present you the new publication, Trends in the Caribbean Netherlands 2021. And I'm very happy and proud to do so. So here you are.
Yes, it's there. Yeah, this worked. Technology of today, it's amazing what we can do. Well, I'll come back to you later, Mr. Knops. But first we go to Bonaire, where we have Mr. Edison Reina, the island governor, and also Alida Francis at Statia, the government commissioner over there. And in Bonaire, we have our head of office there, of Statistics Netherlands, Bonaire, Quinten Knuff. And he will do the official handover over there. Quinten, are you there?
Yes. First off, good morning and good afternoon to everyone. And following Angelique, I'd like to, it's my honor and pleasure to hand over a digital copy of the publication, the latest publication, to our governor on Bonaire, Edison Reina.
Yes, he's there. Did you get it, Mr. Reina? I guess so. Can he hear us? Well, I think that he probably will have it, Quinten.
There seems to be a slight malfunction with the audio on his side, I think. And to Ms. Alida Francis on Statia, I'd also like to hand you a copy of the latest version of Trends and Agreement Netherlands, this time with Statia on the cover.
We see she is having it. I'm not sure if we can hear her. Mrs. Francis will thank you so much for coming. Mr. Reiner also in this broadcast. Yes, it's
much
there.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Quinten.
Yes, we can hear you. Quinten, thank you. Thank you for handing it over. Well, let's go back here in The Hague in the Netherlands. Thank you, Mr. Reiner, Mrs. Francis, to be here. And of course, Mr. Knops, are you all still with us, Mr. Knops? Let's see you.
Sure, yes.
He is there. Well, as you can see, you have the publication. Quite sure you have had a slight view of the contents already. It's an important publication. What do you think of it, your first impression?
First of all, thank you very much to CBS for presenting us this report. I think data is always very valuable, but it becomes even more valuable if you collect it for years after years, and then you can explore the trends that are happening. We just got some flavor in it from the presentation. And this is important because you can use it as an input for policymakers to make the right decisions. So knowing facts and bare facts is very important to make these important decisions that have to be made at the islands in the upcoming years.
Yeah. Well, you've seen the data, for instance, in the presentation on the tourism bouncing back on the islands. But still, there's a pandemic, and here in the Netherlands, we are seeing again more sick people. Do we have to hold our breath for the islands also? What do you think?
Well, what we did in the recent 1.5 years is that we supported the islands with a package of aid in the form of medical aid, for example, but also packages for companies that didn't have any income at that moment. And this is very important because the small islands are even more vulnerable for pandemic effects than for example, European Netherlands.
Yeah.
So yes, we are monitoring it very closely. We had a huge package created, which was similar to the package we delivered for the European part of the Netherlands. And I'm very proud of that because we are talking a lot about equality and the need to treat each other in the same way. And we try to do this also with these measures. So, and the medical aid is massive. So if something occurs and we have to scale up, we can do this immediately.
Okay. Apart from the pandemic and COVID-19, what kind of development did you see in the past years on other topics at the islands?
As you could see in the presentation, especially the growth of the population in Bonaire is enormous, you could say. So you have to accommodate this one way or the other, by spatial policy, by the way you demand, let's say, all kinds of restrictions to people that come in. You want to maintain the same level of living as Bonaire had before. And whereas Seba and Statia stay more stable in their population and the growth of the population, you have to accommodate the growth in Bonaire. And we are in discussion with that also with the island governor, with Reiner, but also with the bestuurscollege and politicians, because it's their island. They have to decide on their future. And if you see the numbers and the facts that also have been written down in this report of CBS, you have to do something with this. So it's an enormous important input for policymakers also on the island to make the right decisions for the near future.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Knops. Angelique, we are working together with the Ministry of Interior and Kingdom Relations on this, also on this publication. How important is that collaboration to us?
Yes, it's very, very important. And we work together with the Ministry, of course, on a lot of policy areas. The housing market, for instance, or in creating data for local governments. And of course, I think, and I also hope, and trust if I hear the words of the State Secretary, that what we provide today is a lot of information that will allow the ministry to monitor all kinds of developments in the islands, in Bonaire and Sabah and Statia, and to determine what the focus of policy together with the islands should be for the next coming of years. So I really hope we can continue this collaboration.
Yeah, I guess so. And let's try to do that. Mr. Knops, thank you for being with us in this broadcast.
Maybe some remark on the report, if it's possible, because
sure,
I saw
go ahead.
interesting numbers about the turtle population. And I have been with my family together last 2 years on holiday in Bonaire in the season where the number of tourists was very low. I had a lot of space to move around the island. And last year we went again to Bonaire, and we were part of a project, a sea turtle conservation project on Bonaire. And happily, I can see that the number is growing, and that's a good thing. So the continuous attention of the local authorities to preserve nature, that's one of the things you can also underline by this report. You can see it, it has been measured, and I would say go on with these good initiatives.
Yeah, I guess you can also recall that experience, Angelique.
Yeah, I did. I saw a one in the wild when I was swimming in Bonaire at 1,000 steps. Yeah. I was very lucky to see one and swim with it for about a quarter of an hour. Yeah.
So one case was monitored by our Director General herself.
Right.
Yeah, with 12 turtles. Yeah.
And it's in the book.
And Mr. Knops as well. And it's in the book, definitely.
Yep.
Well, again, thank you, Mr. Knops, for being with us. And also Mr. Reina for being with us. Mrs. Alida Francis also, and Quinten and Esther at Bonaire. And well, we can now go to the second part of this broadcast. We will end this one, and then we go to the press available also, and they can ask their questions. Thank you all for being with us in this broadcast. Oké, even 30 seconden wachten.
Moeten we dan heel...